Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me is the smart one of the group, David Morassutti. Hi, David.
Hi, Frank.
Somebody said,
I'll go with it.
I've had too much pizza.
Oh,
We
hey,
ordered a pizza.
that means you had a lot of pizza.
Oh hell. No kidding. We ordered our regular pizza that we ordered, and it was twice as heavy as usual.
Oh,
They put double the toppings on it.
oh,
It
I,
wouldn't sit on the slice of pizza. There were so many toppings.
and it's one of those where you're trying to take the pizza and the toppings are so heavy that the pizza's almost like,
Yeah, and it keeps going bloop,
yeah,
bloop, or this way. Bloop, bloop, and you can't eat the pizza because it kept doing this. And no matter how you grabbed it, on the outsides, on the middle, you had to put a couple of fingers on it. It was like, spinning a plate. It was just ridiculous. So normally I have like 3 pieces. Today, I quit after I started the second one.
wow, wow.
Yeah, very filling. And the dog kept doing this. Kept doing this. Why aren't you eating another piece of pizza? Because I get the crust of your pizza, right? Eat pizza. Come on, go ahead. So I didn't, and it you weren't happy, were you, Boo Boo? She'll get over it. I know she will. It's for sure that she will. Yeah. So how's your interesting life going?
Well, I didn't have pizza, so I guess not as interesting as yours.
Oh, I sense a wee bit of jealousy.
There's certain things you don't toy with when it comes to an Italian. It's
Food,
yeah.
just food. Doesn't matter what food.
I didn't have a bad meal, but I didn't have pizza.
What'd you have?
I had some chicken parmesan.
Oh, you little bugger. I'd prefer it. No, never mind. That's good.
Not
That's good. Parmigiano goes down well.
especially when it's not heavy, nice and light.
Ooh, yes. We better finish this show early so we can run out to get something to eat.
Nothing beats a late night snack.
Nothing whatsoever. Guilty as charged. And I have to say, um, what we've experienced is so far in the Canadian Football League has been a steady diet of really. There's been a lot of stuff, interesting stuff going on. Uh, you know what? I think the first thing that we should talk about, because I think it's the most important thing. It's about getting the word about the CFL out. I keep looking and looking and hoping that there's more coming from the Canadian Football League and or the teams or the network, the one that does the Canadian Football League. And I find myself starving for stuff. I'll start by saying that Three Down Nation, whether you like their editorial stance, they produce a lot of material and then a lot of it's really good.
They're on top of everything. Like if you thought there was CFL news, or like you thought you're caught up on CFL news, you go to Three Down Nation and you're just like, no, I'm not caught up on, on not just CFL news but Canadian football news.
Yeah, and they'll even reach in a little bit into the NFL when there's kind of a twist that might have something to do with the interest of the Canadian Football League.
Mm-hmm.
And the, we 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 always look for stuff if you like the Canadian Football League. And I just wonder how the listeners feel about the information that's out there for Canadian Football League fans. If they feel like I do, and that is a couple of years ago, the league seemed to really wanted to do some off-season stuff. It seemed very calculated. And more importantly, and I think this is the key component, even before the offseason came, they talked about what was going to happen in the offseason. we're kind of missing that this year, and we could write off the last couple of years because how do you preview what's going to happen the next year when you don't know what's if there's even going to be a next year, right?
Yeah.
But was this year in doubt? Is this year in doubt? I think not.
No, not at all.
So there's no reason to not plan on doing stuff and get out there. It seems kind of quiet, you know, and I was hoping to get the commissioner on one of these weeks to talk about the excitement. You know, well, how does he see the excitement level in the off season? What are they doing in the off season? Is he do they feel it's important what they do in the off season? We're waiting for the callback.
Well, and here's the thing, right? It's just like there's been so much movement. You think that at some point you want to kind of digest it a little bit, right? There's a flurry of moves. It's like a buffet. There's so much there, and then you have like you consume all of it, and then you don't get a chance to really let it digest and sink in because there's not that much. Like we do our best here to kind of break down the news, and eventually we'll do our previews, but we save that closer to the start of the season because if we do it now, we're not going to have any content before training camp starts, right? But
Well, we can do it, but it's never going to be done. You know, you can't discuss the starting lineups 4 months before the season starts because between that time and when the starting lineups are relevant, there can be a lot of changes. But that's what you can talk about. So suggestions. When there was a time when they had a bunch of things that they were planning on doing, like they'd have teams having special events as far as, you know, you know, basically talking about their teams and having, get-togethers, you know, and talk about, a city host. Let's talk about the Canadian Football League in whatever capacity they want to.
Mhm.
We don't have that right now, and I'm struggling for remembering some of the stuff they did because I guess and it's been so long, and I don't know. I guess that's the point I'm trying to get at. I'm feeling a little bit guilty because I'm trying to find out and figure out what's exciting about the Canadian Football League and their upcoming season. And aside from the obvious, which we have now, which is free agency and the lineups getting, all the big names going back and forth, which is very exciting. But
Mhm.
we're going to have that lull, and then there's going to be, the Canadian draft, and I guess that's what we're going to count on. That's what we're going to be looking at, and that's what we're going to be thinking about. But there's nothing there for the casual fan, I guess, is what I'm getting at, and I think you agree with.
Yeah, because look, you just brought up an event that's coming up really soon. How much has we know when the all the combines are happening? We kind of have an idea of who's going to be there. Where is the content to really dive into who these prospects are? Because that's I think the other thing that really I give a lot of credit to guys like Justin Dunk and Dwayne
Ferguson,
and Marshall Ferguson who we've had on. They do a great job breaking it down, but how come they're not out there right now promoting, like giving a bit of a taste of who these guys are that we're gonna see? If we go to the combine, we're kind of going into it a little bit blind because we really don't know much about these players. That's I think the biggest struggle is there's not that transitional period between what they did in college, getting to the combine, and then eventually to the CFL. We're kind of playing catch up once they reach the CFL, and then once they reach a CFL team, that's where we get into who these guys are because those of us who cover a local team, that's we're not really interested in the other prospects because we don't know where they're going. We're more interested in the guys that end up with the team that they draft.
absolutely.
But I think that's a we said it last year that the draft has been very underrated in terms of, or not even underrated. It has not gotten the hype and coverage it has needed because usually other leagues prop up that this is the next crop of young guys that are going to, be something for the league, help sustain the future of the league.
Right.
The CFL has not done that.
Well, they will do it, but it will be, um, yeah. I know Marshall will be doing it, and you know, well, if you go into CFL.ca, it's fantastic. There's tons of stuff there for you to look at. Um, is there stuff there that you can look in detail? The draft, in fact, it has here CFL Combine, CFL Draft highlights for the 22 and the off-season schedule that is a part of that. So here, I'll read you. So the key dates are March 10th, Ontario Regional Combine presented by New Era. March 11th, the Eastern Regional Combine presented by New Era. March 18th, Western Regional Combine. March 25th through 27th, the CFL Combine, and it'll be at the Varsity Center. So it'll be here in Toronto. And I guess, um, you know, the draft, how important is it to all the teams? Well, it's important in this sense. In order of draft, Edmonton, Ottawa, BC, Montreal, Calgary, Toronto, Saskatchewan, Hamilton, Winnipeg. So that's the order they go in, and then they go in reverse the next time around. On May 11th, the rookie camps open. On May 14th, the CFL roster is reduced to 85. May 15th, training camps. May 17th, the CFL roster is reduced to 75. And the preseason begins week 1, May 23rd. So we're now, David, at the beginning of February, March, April, May. So, and it's the end of May. So that's 4 months. So the season starts in 4 months in earnest. And by earnest, I mean they get the helmets on and they use them, right? Everything else before then, the contact doesn't start till then, but the real brutal stuff, the real game and the stuff, the reason why we go to games begins then. So that's 4 months away. Is that a long time?
It's, what, it's not. It feels like a long time, but when you have enough of the, when you're consumed by every single piece of every event that is happening, like I'm going to point to the NFL because the combine is huge in the States, the draft is huge, everything is treated big. Unfortunately for the CFL, and look, CFL teams have done a great job with drafts, hosting draft parties, and getting the fans involved in that regard. But it's the consumption, it's getting the word out to everybody else, not just those who are season ticket holders or close in terms of their allegiance to a team. But yeah, it's not a long gap if you give enough content to satisfy those who are waiting for the season. You keep it going. There's not that kind of lull period or just like a like, especially from, I say, the end of the Grey Cup, so December to the start of free agency. That's really, I think, the period where it drags the most. But I think, especially given how much the combine and draft are covered by every other sports league or most sports leagues, the CFL, I think, could learn a lot in terms of building some excitement in that regard.
Yeah. All right. So we'll leave that part there, and we'll start talking about some other stuff. There's obviously the draft is important, and what is important as well is how will it look? How will the league look? What are some of the changes we can look forward to? One change that I'd like to acknowledge because I like him as a on-air person, and he did the play-by-play for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He's now moving over to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Can one assume that he's doing that? He's doing that, and it's an improvement for him. It's a move up. He's going from a team, Saskatchewan, that I think has probably some of the most rabid fans. Now he's going over to Winnipeg.
Yeah, this one was a little bit interesting in that regard because we know that Saskatchewan, if you're Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, Some would say that Saskatchewan is almost the bigger market in terms of like they're consumed by Rough Rider stuff, you know, all year long, right? But I think Winnipeg has taken a real. I think they've gone in terms of their popularity has really gone up. You know, and as an organization, they've done a lot of good things, both on and off the field. I think that that's something that you know, and sometimes, I mean, I can't speak for Mr. Taylor, but I can kind of say some challenges get a little bit stale if you're kind of doing the same thing. You want to try something different. You know, but it's also just opportunity could be better, right? You have to kind of in some situations think about what's best for you. And I mean, look at Winnipeg has done. Like they a lot. I've heard some good things about what Winnipeg has done. I there was somebody who was working for the Argos who has now also moved to Winnipeg. So it just seems like they've really done a good job in terms of providing fans with a lot to be excited for with their team and with the market. And not to say Saskatchewan hasn't, because we know Saskatchewan, it's like a religion to be a Rough Riders fan. But maybe in terms of the opportunity, Winnipeg has shown that they have a lot to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's what I'm going to say. He's he's taking over Bob Irving's position. You know, we met him at the Grey Cup. Great man, one of the greatest broadcasters of all time, inducted into the Hall of Fame. Wonderful reputation, and he leaves a real legacy behind him. Right now, that's a pretty good legacy to slip into behind, right? And 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 you know, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, I can't see in my own mind anyway, other than the fact that it was a change he was looking for. I know he's a Western kid, and I'm referring to. And I was trying to find out where he was. I couldn't remember where he was specifically, um, but I guess I'll have to scratch my head a little longer and hope the internet jumps up and tells me where Derek Taylor's from. But I believe he's from the western part of Canada. I'm wondering if that's why he's getting closer to home, um, and that might be a reason, I guess. But regardless, good for him that he's got that position. I'm dying to see who Saskatchewan brings in because it's going to be somebody with some sort of profile because that team generates a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz, and it's a big job to do. Rod Peterson was taken over by him, and so you know, um, so it should be really interesting what happens in Saskatchewan in that regard.
Well, here's a good
Um,
one. I'm pretty sure he is a Winnipeg native.
he might very well be. I'm really not sure. I remember he's from out west somewhere. I just
Well,
that was back when he did the Saskatchewan change.
I'm just reading some of the bio here, and he used to work for Global Winnipeg.
There you go. So it's old home week for him.
Yeah,
Ah, good for him. Well, you know that's the thing that's going to be happening, right? That's an
exactly.
opportunity that will happen a lot of times. Um, Martavius Bryant, another story that's come across the wire. A guy that was signed by the Argos, never showed up. There was a problem with a passport or something, and the problem persisted almost through the whole season, I guess.
Yeah, I remember I mean covering the Argos. The first thing training camp. Well, where is he? He's having I think first it was immigration issues, and it kept we kept asking, and poor Ryan Dinwiddie. I think he was tired of us constantly asking. But I mean, it's kind of our jobs to get an update on these sort of things, and it just seemed like whatever issue it was, it wasn't an issue enough to try to sort through and get them here to Canada. And
Yeah,
that was a weird one. Some thought maybe he had some second thoughts about the CFL, but now, I mean, now that he signed in Edmonton, I don't think it was. Maybe there were issues with the past when the Argos just closed the door.
Chris Jones has a thing for NFL anything.
Yes.
You know, if it's NFL, he has an interest in it. He's very aware of what's going on in the NFL, and he loves NFL players. And Octavius Bryant fits that mold. And maybe finally we'll see what he can do in the CFL. It might happen finally. I'm interested in seeing how he does here. You know, a real good receiver in the NFL. But as we've learned over the years, that just because you're a good or a great receiver in the NFL doesn't mean you can do it in the Canadian Football League, just as it is with quarterbacks. Here's a personal thing that we're interested in. We had a talk a little bit about it, and we're wondering, and this is something that's totally relevant to the fans at face value, but when it comes to what you glean from it, it matters. Here's the thing that David and I were wondering about, and that is media access to the players. You know, as fans, I'm sure everybody now can understand the difference between a scrum, which is microphones in a player's face, more than one, more than one person, and people are asking questions and not necessarily in any order, not in any preconceived list of questions. Anybody can say anything, and the player is right there beside the media, where you see the, the homogenized version, which is the part where the player sits on a chair at a desk, feet away, and quite a few, with COVID, answering questions, and he can sit there and calmly take his time to answer the questions. I think the fans enjoy those other interviews a little better only because I think there's more intensity in the answers, just as there is more intensity in the questions. And they're more rapid fire as well, because it's not take your turn, okay, it's your turn, okay, it's just question, and then the next question is going to come as soon as someone stops talking, because as soon as they stop talking, the next question is fired, because it's a contest for reporters to ask the question that they want to ask. And aside from you know the respect shown the older reporters who get there for, whether it's, for example, the Argo reporter goes first, and then it's free for all after that. So there is a sense of order, but it's very limited.
I also think it's not even. I think two things about that. It's not even the scrum. It's the one on ones. I haven't had a one on one with a CFL player. I can't remember the last time. In person one on one. Like the closest we've had to in person was at the Grey Cup, but we were almost like,
It was a one-on-one, but yeah, it was behind a line.
well, it was like 12 feet away. If you
Yeah,
really, we were 6 feet and they were 6 feet. Like we had to stand, like it was better. And I personally think we got more out of those interviews than I ever did on any other Zoom interview, because it's the interaction. They half the time the players don't see us on those Zooms because they got the camera on them, but the screen they're not watching the screen, they're watching the camera. Our faces aren't there. That personal connection is so important. It's super.
man. You know, I was privileged. I was lucky, and I've never released any of the interviews, which is, I don't understand why I didn't do it. In 2019, in February, I was at Collingwood, and the league had their big thing at Collingwood, and we were literally hanging out with the players, the coaches, the GMs, the owners, everybody. We were literally hanging out with them. We were in the same hotel, and they were having the owners' meetings in a room like feet away from where we were interviewing players, coaches, and such. And that was probably the most intense gathered inner relationship I was a part of with reporters in the Canadian Football League that I'd ever experienced. It was so amazing that I was able to get two brothers that are coaches do an interview at the same time. And I'm referring to Saskatchewan and Calgary's coaches, the Dickinson brothers.
Mhm. Right.
So that to me was the last time before this Grey Cup that we were able to do something like that.
Wow. And here's the thing. I think some fans will say, "Ah, why does the media want to get like in the locker room?" I don't care if it's in the locker room. When we do Argos practice, we're not in the locker room after practice. We ask for the player and they bring them out to us, and it's better because then we have that one on one. We get what we and like we're not asking the players to give us 20 minutes. Give for but that one on one, and I don't care where it is. I think and when I brought this up last week, it was because in the NBA, it was talking about locker room access. I think a lot of media members wouldn't care if it was in the locker room. The reason why they like the locker room is because it's easier on the team staff because
Right.
it's not in the locker room. Like the issues I mean, it's not an issue because they work. I mean, the Argos, I'll give them a shout out. They work really hard to go and get the players, and usually the way it works is that we give the names of the players we want. It's on a whiteboard. The players see it and they know that we want to talk to them. And sometimes they'll say, "Okay, just give me a second. I'm going to go in the locker room, kind of take some my pads off, and then I'll come right back out." Preference. But for I think what makes it will make it difficult for after games if we're not in the locker rooms. It's that now the media person has to rally up all these players, get them to a room. And I hate to say it, but I'm not on deadline, but there are other reporters on deadline, and that adds to the delay, the time to have to go and get the players, and then you got to come back.
Let let me just interject this point. So, folks, what David's getting at, I'm going to make this little point. The game is played at night. It ends at 9:30. At 12:30, we're leaving the stadium because that's how long it takes to get all the interviews. Because the players have to go up 3 floors. That's what it was.
This
So
past season, it was a lot longer. I
yeah,
found.
and so that's what David's talking about. And then we have writers who are doing stories who need their story out by 10:15.
Well,
So
especially to all, I mean, our good friends on the Canadian Press Wire Service, 'cause they gotta get deadlines for newspapers.
yeah, and it's hard to do your job. It's hard. Okay, I'm not looking here for sympathy, and neither is David. We're just trying to point out that part of what you, the viewer, and the CFL fan counts on is information. So if you've just joined us, we've discussed the fact that during the season, of course, all the information you possibly could want, you get it. The off season, it changes a little bit. The Canadian Football League, the past few years, pre-COVID, during COVID, now hopefully after COVID, will end up back to the way it was pre-COVID because the off season was much better pre-COVID, bar none, obviously,
Yeah.
without a doubt, right? But the question we've gotten to now is how can the Canadian Football League enhance the off season and help sell those season tickets? Because essentially that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about drumming up interest enough that people want or are willing to confirm they want to buy tickets and be a part of whatever home team they have as season subscribers. That's one of the reasons why the Argos have gone from, you know, assigning the league itself assigning the schedule in February. Try to remember this, folks. The schedule used to come out in February before the pandemic, I think a season or two before the pandemic, and then it changed. I guess that's something that we can say, Ambrosi, that the commissioner was behind because it happened at the time that he came in. So that gives a team a chance to sell tickets, right, David? But if that opportunity to buy tickets isn't part of selling the game to the fans, right? The
Yeah.
only reason they're going to buy the tickets is they're saying, "Okay, I remember what happened last year. I went and I was a ticket holder then. Yeah, okay, I'll be a season ticket holder again." But what if you're looking for new fans?
Right. I mean, I'm looking at right now what the Ottawa Red Blacks are doing. I love it.
Let's talk about it.
Every week, so it's called Behind the R. I mean, they could have come up with a little bit of a more creative name, but I'm nitpicking on that one. But every week they're releasing a behind the scenes. It's about 10 minutes long a behind the scenes. They kind of promote it as like an F1 style documentary where you get access behind the scenes of what's going on this off season with the Red Blacks. As a fan, I'm loving it because you're seeing like this team has been making a lot of moves, a lot of changes, and you're giving. This is the type of content I'm talking about. It's giving the fans, a chance to see what's going on.
And connect to the team, right? The players, the relationships, the personalities.
We constantly say that CFL players are so great to talk to and they're so open and they're personable. It'd be great instead of us show.
Talking about it.
Yeah. And Jeremiah Mazzoli was the feature of the second episode. I'm not giving anything away, but he was the feature.
No, even if you do, it doesn't matter.
And if I'm a Red Blacks fan, you get to see a little bit of Mazzoli and the effect he's having on the team, and just as bringing him in as a free agent. I think, I mean, if you're a CFL fan, I think you should watch it because I think it should be something that you're pushing your other teams to do. Like I look at my favorite things to watch right now. Has been the Drive to Survive documentary. There's a one about a team in Sutherland Till I Die, a lower tier English Premier English soccer league. Not even it's third tier. And I know a lot of people who've watched this documentary just because it's on Netflix and it gives you a lot of behind the scenes and the storytelling is really good. If I'm the CFL and if I'm looking for one thing to really help promote this league, look at what Ottawa's doing and look at what other teams like Ottawa have done to connect to fans in a way outside of I would call it the traditional media in terms of not going through TSN in a way. TSN has done some good job with promoting league, but this is done in a different way because it's all about marketing your league. You don't think that F1 when they went through Netflix wasn't thinking about how this would impact the growth of their audience? More young people watched F1 this past
But
year.
it's the way it's the way they package it too, David. It's the sizzle that they provide,
Oh,
and what they're basically saying is, um, I like the commercial they have, our fans are better than your fans. Then nothing excites, fans more than getting their competitive juices going. That's why CFL fans get dressed up. you know, they're there. They want to be excited. They want the sizzle, and hopefully, we'll figure this out. But they've got to do it. You're right.
it was funny because when the Argos had signed Andrew Harris, they showed a clip. It was like a 10-second clip of Pinball getting off that phone and cheering, like getting so excited that they signed Andrew Harris. Don't you think the fans would have liked to have seen an extension of that? The excitement of the room. Like they're not giving anything away in terms of they know that they're signing Andrew Harris. They know it's happening. Now you guys kind of get to see how it all gets put together. Mike Hogan, I know he does a behind the scenes article. If you take that and put it into a different medium for the fans to consume, oh, like it gives a little more because there's nothing more exciting sometimes in the CFL than the offseason because there's so much movement. So you get to see the madness that these teams go through to put their rosters together. It'd be fascinating.
It could be like, there's no danger, right, of using more time to show that signing and what led up to the signing, what the signing means. You can do a lot more than 10 seconds, and it'll be gripping, right? It'll take about 10 minutes before that subject gets boring. And there's a lot you can do in that 10 minutes. And that 10 minutes is really important because the one thing about the Canadian Football League is everybody shares that stuff. So, if someone doesn't go to the Argonauts webpage or the CFL webpage, right? However they follow their sports or however they follow news, whatever their interest is, it'll end up on their timeline. It'll end up on their Facebook timeline. It'll end up being a tweet that they see, and those tweets then get exchanged, and the story then becomes not the backstory, but it becomes part of the whole story. And the whole story is when you put a bunch of those little stories you're talking about, like, that isn't the only story they could have told. They could have told the story about signing Brandon Banks. They could have told the story about
Gary,
all, like, every player they signed. They could have done 5 or 6 minutes, not of time that they had to grab the player or grab, the media guy or grab the coach or grab Pinball Clemens. They were together. And that's why the thing works with the Red Blacks. They're not staging it. And that's the beauty of this whole thing. It's not staged.
no,
Well, I shouldn't say it's not staged, because maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the point is, it doesn't look staged. It looks like you're just taking an opportunity to bring people behind the scenes. And that's, to your point, is that you bring people behind the scenes, it feels different. And that makes it fun to watch. And it's like you feel like you're there by yourself. You're basically seeing something that you wouldn't otherwise see. There's no dummy like Frank holding a microphone and saying, well, here he is, this, that. You feel like you're the person holding the mic. It's that relationship building that I think is the point you're trying to make, and that the CFL might be losing, the teams individually or as a group, whichever. It's about making contact with the fans. And sometimes I think we expect too much, and maybe we lose an opportunity because we're looking for the best way to reach the fans, when just reaching them is good enough, I think, is your point.
I also think the other thing that because I know it's not the Red Blacks that are putting it together. There's a company that is
Okay.
producing it for the Red Blacks. And I think the benefit of doing it like that is you're telling this company, well, these are the rules. We're giving you access to the team, the footage, and all these things. They're kind of our rules that you have to. There's going to obviously be some rules, but it's almost like, all right, this is what we want, or this is what we're giving you. Do what you want with it, right? In terms of interviews, we want the full interviews. But I think sometimes what's great with the F1 documentary, and I know any CFL fan has watched it, is it's not it's there's a bit of there's like a raw attitude towards it, because sometimes they're the producers asking the question, or the person conducting the interviews asking questions. Sometimes the driver is talking as if he's not on camera, but he's actually is on camera. So there's a bit of that relaxed feel to it. It's raw. You can tell that it's not totally edited, because that's sometimes, so fans are like, but if the CFL does something like this, they're gonna try to make sure that their teams don't look bad. I say transparency makes for great content,
I,
because
I I get what you're saying in that regard, but I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think it's there's got to be some risk, because if you want reward, unfortunately, it comes with risk.
mhm,
But I don't know how you turn down the reward. And the reward here is putting the team on on people's minds, right? It's like, the simplest way to support what you're saying for me is that old adage and that saying that, actors say, you know, I don't care what the story's about, just spell my name right. That's what you want, right? You just want to be out there, and the league should be out there. I hope, that at some point we get together and figure out this kind of stuff. I'm sure the CFL, right now is this is probably an unfair time to talk about stuff like this, David. I wonder, maybe it might have a lot to do with the fact that, as you and I both know, a lot of people lost their jobs because of the pandemic.
mhm.
Are they back to the same level of staff, the CFL teams? And I'm talking about the support staff, not the cap staff, if you understand the hair I'm splitting here.
Yeah.
How staffed are they? Can they do this kind of stuff? you know,
They wouldn't be able.
and I know a lot of people got let go, every department in the Canadian Football League, teams, the league, everything. And until some money starts to flow in there, until they can start paying some salaries, this is the problem with what happened. This is unfortunately the hangover from the pandemic. We're seeing it in society. The price of gas, inflation, problems with shipping stuff because now everybody wants something, and the CFL is caught in that as well by, they don't have maybe the same staff they used to have, and trying to do things today is a little harder because we're all at the same time saying we're ready to go back to life, but now we have to stand in line.
Yeah, and this is why I think you don't like F1 doesn't have the capability of doing these documentaries either. Really, this is why they go outside because you know this is why you go outside. This is why you hire a production company because then they have the man. It's up to them to figure out how to produce it, and how to do the how to get the people involved. Um, I think that if anything has I think if the CFL has learned should have learned anything during this pandemic, it's that the last thing you want to do is show that you're not willing to properly invest in your product because it doesn't send the right message to the fans, in my opinion. Right? A lot of them are Brandon Rosie saying they're going to return to a better CFL, and then fans, I don't think fans connected in that way. I don't know if they were happy to have CFL back. That was the saving grace for the CFL, is that fans were just happy to have it back. But to say that you're going to come to a better one, but then not put the investment into it, that's the tough one there, right? You get back what you invest into, and I think a lot of CFL fans would agree that maybe the season didn't have that and feel like it had that investment in it right from the start.
Yeah, it's been tough though. It's been very tough, David. Okay, let's leave that subject behind. And you mentioned that we had a CFL player, former player, question the Canadian Football League going to Halifax instead of New Brunswick.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull up who the player's name was. It was a Canadian receiver or former Canadian receiver that we were talking. This is kind of taking a bit of a back seat. The Touchdown Atlantic initiative. So former receiver Jeff Fairholm,
Fairholm, yeah.
Cal- from Calgary. He said that putting, and this is on the Rod Peterson show that he appeared, and he said that I'm not sure putting the team in Halifax, sorry, is the best idea. Nova Scotia is kind of, from what I know, a province that doesn't really want to be around the other provinces, whereas New Brunswick
I read that.
would
When
be.
I read that,
I mean, and here's the thing. He said
Nova
that.
Scotia doesn't want to be around other provinces.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
They're kind of far away. I don't think it's a choice of theirs.
but I think what it is he's saying that when the because the CFL has gone there on a few occasions, and they're like Moncton was a happening town, but Moncton is also a town that's significantly smaller than Halifax. Moncton has 145,000 as a population, versus Halifax, where it's 465,000. You know, I think that part of it plays to it. It's also who's putting it forth the investment into it as well, right? It was
Stadium. It's
very dry.
location of a stadium.
He was able to secure $20 million in government funding for a CFL to build a stadium. And how now $20 million might not sound like a lot, but let's not forget CFL stadiums are not like other stadiums. They're not, I think to what Tim Hortons Field, they're, these aren't extravagant. That like they pretty much, as long as there's you can
25,000 seats.
you get butts in the seats, you have concessions, you have the basic facilities that you need. Like this isn't like Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, where those are, I consider those in terms of CFL quality, state of the art
Oh,
stadium,
they're A and B. You can argue over which one's A and which one's B.
right?
We
Like
love BMO, but BMO's more along the lines of well,
it's mid
you know.
there's a tier, right? If we're going with tiers, it's Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, tier 1. Tier 2, you go like BMO Field, Hamilton, BMO, Tim Hortons,
Ottawa.
and yeah, where the red TD, it was a TD,
BC's in a class of its own.
BC, because I mean that's an Olympic stadium that was
Yeah,
built.
that's in a class of its own.
Yeah, that was in a class of its own. Like Commonwealth and
Calgary needs to be rebuilt. Edmonton needs to be rebuilt.
right, and those are old stadiums that were built for other reasons, but they're there and the teams can use them, and it's not costing the teams really that much, right?
Right. Or the community.
Right. So the stadium is always the first hurdle.
And Montreal is a stadium that they're using college, university
Yeah.
stadium.
Right. And that's something I guess Halifax would have to figure out there too, is they would have to find other tenants. Like they have the Canadian Premier League team there. You mentioned lacrosse as a potential as well. Outdoor, I know outdoor lacrosse is.
Well, as far as unifying the money,
Yeah.
as far as sports is concerned,
So
because the infrastructure of owning a team is the same, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. They have basketball there too. The structure, the infrastructure of owning an organization is because of selling tickets and stuff, and advertising and promotion.
I think when you look at what would help the CFL, I mean, someone are wondering, is expanding the right move for the CFL? Well, having a
It's absolutely the right move at the wrong time.
yeah, this
That's
should,
the way I see it right now. It's just the right move at the wrong time.
when they were planning to do it, it should have been done. They should have been
Oh,
well off the ground to get.
they missed it, but nobody knew this was coming, David. They were being very diligent. They were being very, you know, deliberate in what they were doing,
Mhm.
but nobody knew the timeline that they were actually on. And when COVID came, it just kicked the economy of every town, city, um, province, the country, the world. In fact, money is a little tighter now. I don't know how guaranteed they are to get that money, but from what I understand, the people trying to put the team in Halifax, they're back at work again. Um, the city. The last I heard, they dropped the proposal. Right, it's gone, and now it has to come back, and it has to be approved by the city once again.
Yeah, that's the hurdle, right? When you've kind of shut down a project in a way, or like you do put, it's always hard to get it back and going again. You think about Calgary and what they're trying to do with
Oh,
arena projects,
talk about missed opportunities.
right? I just look at what a lot of teams have done. I think stadiums giving a destination, right? Because like how many fans may get turned off because the stadiums are kind of subpar. Because if you go to another sports league and you go to a nice stadium that they have, and you're just like,
Well,
why?
it's all part of it's the in-game experience matters.
Yeah,
I
you're not
mean,
just
it's
paying.
what everybody talks about. That's why that's why you get $3 billion stadiums in the NFL.
And it's not just a stadium in the NFL. My
Yeah,
goodness, it's a community. I I I I,
and
I
then the
just
investment.
I just look at these stadiums and I'm just like, whoa. They
I
go.
just hope they can do something in Halifax sometime soon. I guarantee you this, the only question whether they get a franchise in Nova Scotia, and in particular Halifax, the only question is the subject we just brought up. We can talk for an hour and a half, and we'll be talking about the stadium. It'll always come back to the stadium, because without the stadium, there is no team in Halifax, and that's what has to happen. I don't know if the Canadian Football League can stand on a podium and make a statement much like what Gary Bettman did with the Phoenix team, right? With Arizona, right? Saying, well, they're going to play out of this little tiny stadium for 3, maybe 4 years. Because that's what it might come to in Halifax. That Ambrosie's going to have to stand at a podium and say, yep, they're playing out of this university. And guess what? They're not even going to play in Nova Scotia. They're going to be in New Brunswick. And Fairholm gets his wish. And for 3 years, they'll play there. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm saying if it happens, there's a good chance that's what they're going to have to do. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you might have to wait for that stadium to show up. You know, when the it's funny because when the Winnipeg Jets came back to the NHL, what sold the NHL on bringing them back was, all right, let's see how many people would be interested. Let's see how many season tickets you can sell. Oh, you're sold out within like minutes. Okay.
Yep.
Even though Winnipeg has the small, I think. Well, now Arizona will have the
15.
smallest.
Yeah, they have what, 15 in
Yeah,
Winnipeg,
they
right?
have a smallest stadium, but it's still good enough that they can get all the revenues and everything that's needed. You know, I think the idea of trying to fill a stadium with 40,000 people for a CFL game it's asking for too much. It is asking for
It
too much,
got to be too much even in Saskatchewan. They were having trouble selling out in Saskatchewan.
right? I think if you do 25,000 as the max,
Again, the pandemic.
and then you make it somewhat accessible in terms of you can add capacity for larger events like the Grey Cup, like they've
Right.
done in Toronto and in Hamilton. That's I think where you benefit a bit more as a league in terms of you're not setting the goal bar too high. You're setting yourself at a realistic bar, but it's also you have to do a bit more research into what the demands are in the community. Do they really want a CFL franchise right now? Maybe there was appetite before. Maybe the pandemic has changed, or maybe it's still there. But I think getting back into there as in the CFL in terms of having games back in in the Atlantic region in the
This year, the Argos are going to be there. Saskatchewan's going to be the visiting team. There's going to be sales of tickets over there for the game.
yeah,
It's going to end up being in Moncton again, not in, Halifax. And we're going to see how, Eastern Canada takes to the Canadian Football League after the pandemic.
yeah,
Right? That's what we're going to see. And the owners are convinced, and I don't think it's fair for people to judge whether the team can be a success by how powerfully they sell tickets for this game, because it's a whole different dynamic when you're talking about your own team. I don't care what anybody says. It mattered when the Bills came to Toronto. That was not a way you decide whether the Toronto fans will appreciate the NFL, because it's Buffalo's team. So
yeah,
we that's up to the owners to figure out. They'll be able to figure out, you know, what's what. And as long as they're satisfied, because they're going to be putting up the money, then it's a question of the league approving the owners. And I know the owners they're good for it. They're a good group of solid businessmen, and they've been committed to the Canadian Football League for many, many years at the Grey Cup. These people love the Canadian Football League, love Canadian football, and love the idea of having a team named the Schooners.
yeah. And I think if you right now you got to really sell this game in Moncton if you're the CFL. Like if you say we didn't do so well, it better be because you tried as much as you can and it just didn't help, didn't work out. It better
There's
not
no
be the
shot.
opposite way where we really didn't like we kind of put the investment into marketing this, but not too much. Like I feel like in the past they hadn't done enough, but I think this is an opportunity right now where you really have to see what you have because I think the more you can expand the CFL, I think the healthier it's going to be. The help with scheduling.
They need another team. 10 would be beautiful.
I mean, the East needs another team. I've said
It
that.
would help the scheduling a lot, because instead of having one team take a week off, you could have two teams take a week off.
Well,
It'd help in the schedule.
you can have every team play week one.
Absolutely. If that's what you wanted to do,
Yeah,
the opportunity would be there. There would be a game everywhere on CFL football's favorite weekend, Labor Day.
yeah,
There's that too, right? I can't, BC doesn't have a partner. What would be more perfect partner than the furthermost eastern point in
Coast
Canada,
to coast. Like it's a battle
right?
of the yeah.
There'd be a symmetry there. It just would be awesome.
Definitely.
Well, David, ran into another end to another week. Thank you, sir, for being here as usual.
Thank you for having me as usual.
All right, let's go see what we got to eat. He's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thanks for watching CFL Talk, Aaron Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.